Good morning, everybody at Cable One. Thank you very much for taking the time this morning to call in and devote a little bit of your time. We over here at Simplify are really excited. We're really excited about some of the new things that we have been able to develop over the last 6 months. In particular, and one upgrade that we think is really relevant to Cable One and the future of your business is over-the-top and connected television. I know that a couple of months ago we launched kind of a preliminary version of this, and let me just go back and say that when we and the development team here at Simplify first launched OTT and CTV, the idea at that time was to just get something in the market that kind of matched what other people could do, and so that's really what we did. It was definitely a beta, and in the meantime, in the background, Paul Harrison, our CTO, and his development team were very hard at work developing what ultimately is the vision for what our platform will provide in the OTT and connected TV space. And last week, basically, we launched what is to us version 2, but really to Paul was always the vision of what could be possible with OTT and CTV. And I think what we've come to market with is something that is really completely unique, and I'll say that again. What you're going to hear today and the targeting ability that we have today with OTT and CTV is unique only to us, and so you can go into the marketplace confidently, and especially once you really get up to speed with all of the ins and outs of this, you're going to be able to go into the marketplace with full confidence that you have something unique to offer the marketplace. What is OTT and CTV? Of course, we all know that we've had so many people moving off the traditional cable and broadcast and cutting the cord and doing all those types of things. And so what we're talking about when we're talking about OTT is both the large screen in the living room, those actual smart televisions, and also any streaming that you do over a mobile device, whether it's a phone or an iPad or even on your laptop devices. So these spots are basically non-skippable. They're immersive. And they're on devices such as Roku, Fire Stick, the Sony PlayStation. At last count, I heard there was like 65 different streaming devices, and that list keeps growing and growing. And so we're seeing a huge uptick in the number of available impressions, and we see this being a huge opportunity. And let me just give you a little bit of numbers behind that. They're actually predicting that by 2020, which is 14 months from now, basically, that of the $85 billion spot market, that $40 billion of that would be OTT and CTV. Now, that might be, I think, an optimistic estimation, but you can tell that even if it's a low estimation from that, you're seeing a huge amount of money being spent on OTT and CTV advertising and content. Okay, and we think this is perfect for those people. As a matter of fact, one of the other statistics that I read is that there's this feeling that people watch less television today than they used to, and the fact is that studies are showing us that people actually watch more TV than they used to. They're just doing it differently. They're doing it at their own. They're doing it at their own pace, which means they binge watch. I do that myself, and I'm sure a lot of folks on the phone do the exact same thing. And we're just we're seeing that there's a lot of opportunity now to advertise in front of those people. So if you remember back a few months ago when we first launched this, we were pretty clear about how we can target this. And at that time, it was geography based. And as I said earlier too, that was an attempt by us to get into the marketplace with kind of a quote-unquote Me Too product that kind of matched what was out there in the marketplace. And so your competitors basically are out in the marketplace, and their targeting ability is limited to geography. So, as I said, Paul had a different vision for what this could be. And so now, instead of it just being geography-based, we can also layer on additional data elements to make this much more accurate in its reach. We can target in 3 basic ways: addressable, behavioral targeting, which in the old days, or in yesterday, we were calling keyword targeting, and also we can choose from a list of demographic and psychographic categories, and we can target the OTT and CTV spots by those 3 methods. Okay. Now, for those of you on the phone who have been waiting for this, I'm sure you're excited about this, and I think it is actually a revolution in OTT and CTV targeting. So I think that once you are able to sit down and think of the consequences of what that means, you're going to realize that this is a super powerful tool for you and something that the clients are going to absolutely love. And it also, I think, will give you an opportunity to talk to advertisers that maybe have left in the past because they've left or they've lowered their buy because of considerations of their audience leaving. Now we can kind of get those people back. Again, we also have the ability to target both big and small screens simultaneously. As I said, the 3 methods, addressable. So you all know that we launched addressable geofencing not that long ago, which means that we can take an address list and we can create a geofence at that particular address. And we use that off of the GPS signals that we're receiving from the mobile devices in the home, of course, and it gives us the ability to only hit those addresses that make sense to us. Now, I will also say this: when we launched addressable, the limitation for addressable back when we launched it was that the client had to have an address list. That is no longer the case either. So we fixed that problem as well. And that means that if you have a client who does not have an address list, but they know what kind of person they want to target, their age, their income, their education, their buying behavior, their travel behavior, there's just a ton of different things that you can choose from. We can actually curate or build an address list for you, and we can layer that on top of OTT and CTV targeting. Okay. In addition to that, as I said, we also have the ability to layer on the keyword targeting that we've been doing forever on the display product that we have. So we have a keyword list. We develop a keyword list, and we look for people in a geography that have been doing searches around, let's say, auto buying, right? And we layer that on top of an OTT and CTV buy. Okay? And that would be search keywords and contextual keywords. All right? Then we also, again, addressable and demographic are kind of similar because you would kind of do the same thing. You would tell me, or you would not tell me, but you would tell on your order form, you would tell what type of demographic you were looking for, or what kind of what their age is, what their income is, what their we have 12 different categories you can choose from, and we can target those OTT and CTV just to the demographic within a geography. As always, we were able to do location targeting, so we would always match the location that you're looking for, whether it's a city, state, zip, or metro area. We're still not at the point where we have of course, we have as many impressions available in OTT and CTV as we would for display, for example. So you're probably not going to be able to do a large buy in a zip code, for example, that we might run out of impressions. But we can talk about that on a case-by-case basis. But again, your locations might be at this point a little bit bigger, but as we go forward, we're going to be able to get smaller and smaller and smaller as the amount of impressions increases. Okay. Now you might wonder, how are we doing the behavioral targeting, right? How are we figuring out, what these people are searching for? If we're putting an ad on their television, how could we possibly know what they've been searching for or what they've been looking at in terms of keywords in their online behavior? Well, what we're doing is We are basically cross-device matching their mobile device, right? We take the first starting point is the GPS signal from their mobile device, their phone, and then we are cross-device matching that to other devices in the home, and we're using all of that information to determine which devices to target, and through cross-device matching is exactly how that works. So if we start seeing behaviors on your laptop, and then we cross-device match you to your phone, we also then can cross-device match you to your large screen television. The addressable, I don't know if I need to go into this in too much detail, but again, it's about whether or not, if the client has their own address list, we can use that. If they do not have their own address list, all we need to do is talk about who you're trying to target, and we at Simplify can actually curate that list for you. We identify where those people live, put that into the system, lay down a geofence at their property, and then target their property with OTT and CTV ads. Okay. When it comes to demographic targeting, again, you have 12 different categories you can choose from. You know, let's say you wanted to just target men 25 to 54, like you were able to do in the old days, right? You could come to us and say that's what I want to do. We would curate a list, an address list to that demographic, and target the OTT and CTV impressions to that property address. Okay. Now, we are not charging for the curation of the address list. We're not going to charge you a fee for the curation of the list. But you got to remember, if these folks had to go out and buy their own list, it would be kind of an expensive proposition. So when I say we're not charging you for that list, that's a big benefit to the client, and something that you should definitely mention to them, that if they were to go out and buy this address list of demographic targeting or addressable geofencing, they would have to spend quite a bit of money to curate that list. We're not charging for that list, as I said, and it's definitely a benefit that you're going to need to make sure you talk about. But in order to compensate for that, we have a minimum CPA that is in place, or I'm sorry, minimum CPM when you're having us curate the list, okay? And there's also a minimum spend on that tactic. So if we've developed an address list for you, you have to, the client has to agree to spend $5,000 against that particular tactic. If they're doing other tactics with us, if they're doing if they're doing other tactics with us, that's outside of this $5,000 spend. It's a $5,000 spend against the address list is the way you kind of have to look at it. Okay. Just so you know, some specific targeting capabilities. We are able to see the difference between big screen and small screens, although our recommendation is that when you're doing a campaign or when you're talking to a client, that not even really become a part of the conversation unless they bring it up first. If you start spreading the impressions thin like that, it becomes harder and harder for us to fill the campaign. We can also target laptops, desktops, tablets, mobiles differently. But again, I think that the best way to go about doing this is giving us as much flexibility in the screens and the devices that we can target. That will help us fulfill these campaigns. As I said, there is still a lack of inventory. It's not as big a pie yet as display is, but it's getting there, and we're gonna, as we go forward, it'll get easier and easier. But for right now, especially if we're gonna layer on additional data, we want to try to get as many of these devices and targeting options as few as possible. But we can day part, we can do frequency capping. As a matter of fact, we're recommending that you frequency cap at 4 per 24-hour period per device. Okay. If you run into a client that that has some sort of specific need, let's say they only want to be in sports, or they want Hulu impressions, or they have specific episode needs or time slots that they want, this is a possibility. Okay. We do it via a private marketplace, which is what PMP stands for, private marketplace. But I will give you a couple of caveats. If you request something specific like that, it takes we have to go out and actually negotiate with the publishers on your behalf, and it can be a lengthy process. It also requires, in many cases, for the publisher to approve the advertiser, and that's not necessarily an easy thing to do either. And the third thing that I would definitely say is if you do want to do a private marketplace, be prepared for the cost to be quite a bit higher. If you were to come and say, I want Hulu impressions, or I want impressions in college football or something, it's going to take us it's going to take a private marketplace to do that, and it will definitely be more expensive. It will be at a premium. If you decide that you want to do a PMP through us, you would need to provide some additional information, and if it comes up, and I don't actually expect many people to even call out for a PMP, but if you do, just be aware that you're going to need to give us some additional information so that we can go out and negotiate on your behalf in the right way. So we would need, publisher that you want to target in the website, and we would need to know, as much information about the channel and the specific inventory that you're looking for. Again, who the advertiser is will make a big difference because it will definitely have to be approved by the publisher. And you'll have to tell us what the budget restrictions are and when the flight is. When it comes to reporting of OTT and CTV, we have hourly reporting, zip code breakdowns, we have domain reporting, device type reporting, and then on top of those types of reports, we can also then show you the video reports that we have had for a while, which means we can show you if they were muted or paused or resumed or what the completion rate was. And one of the nice things about this is because these spots are non-skippable, is click-through rate basically is a non-starter. There is no such thing. Most advertisers in the world who understand that are not even going to talk about click-through rate because there is no such thing. But the metric that they're going to look for is completion rate. Now, I've said that these spots are non-skippable, and that's what we're providing. But that does not mean that your completion rate will be 100%. We've seen very high completion rates, but they're not going to ever be 100%. And the reason why that would be is, what if the connection gets lost in the middle of the spot, or what if the person turns off the television? Those are lost completion rates, and that's why you won't get 100%. Okay. Here's a bit of a sample report. I mean, and your reports are going to look different than this, but I did this so that we're showing you this because we want to give you an idea of what it looks like. And the reason why we want to do that is because we don't want you to expect the same clean kind of domain report that you might have seen in the past. The domain report, because there are, as I said, 65 different streaming devices out there, and there's all of these publishers who are out there, and then there's all these inventory consolidation companies out there. The reporting when it comes back is not as clean. So you might see on there, Sling TV, Roku, Android ESPN Live, right? And then you'll see the same thing down here without the you get the picture. There's the same thing will be mentioned over and over and over again. Okay, it's not as clean a report, but the point is we're kind of at a point again where we were with display, which is, hey, if we're reaching the right person at the right time, does it really matter where we reach them? And that's kind of the thought process behind this, right? If we're reaching someone who's been doing searches and reading content in your local area for buying a car, and you're talking to a car dealer, does it matter if you reach that person on the Food Network who showed a high propensity for buying a car, or Travel Channel? It doesn't really matter. It's the same. It's the person that we're trying to target, and that's really the important part. All right, as you see here, we have access to the following devices. And by the way, this is just a sampling of those devices. We are seeing, as I said, over 65 different devices, but the big ones are, Amazon Fire Stick, Apple TV, Google Smart Television, the LG Smart TVs, the Roku devices, the Sony PlayStations, all the big players in this market that we're definitely seeing spots against, inventory on those devices. You might wonder, where are we getting the inventory? Well, we're constantly adding new exchanges to get OTT and CTV inventory from. So that list is short at this point, but it's being added to on a consistent basis. On top of that, we have behind the scenes negotiated over 75 private marketplace deals for Simplify that we are providing to all of our OTT and CTV customers. And so that portion of it, because it's a private marketplace deal that Simplify has negotiated on everyone's behalf, is unique to us, right? If you were to go to a different a DSP, you wouldn't have those 75 PMP deals. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why we're able to do what we're doing is we've created all of these different private marketplace deals with all these publishers, and we're constantly adding to that list. And so the more we add to that list, the more inventory we have, and the more inventory we have, the more we can actually layer on data on top of it. So that's the exciting part of it. And as you see from the publishers list, this is just a short list. There's other ones out there as well. If you want some fun, you might want to go through and try to just Google some of these places you never heard of before. Tubi TV and Zumo and all these other kind of places, and Pluto TV. Those are inventory consolidation companies, and you will see those guys on your reports.
Recommendations based on geography. This is kind of what we've been doing, and it will be at a DMA minimum audience size. You want to think of this as kind of our cable audience extension whitelist. We'll apply a frequency capping as recommended by Simplify, as you see. And then we need to still have at least a minimum of 10 apps or publishers, just again to have enough inventory. So if you've done, let's say, a cable buy that is ESPN, CNN, TNT, USA, and you want to extend that buy to an OTT buy based on geography and our whitelist, we're going to need to add more than just those 4 or 5 network apps in order to be able to pull enough inventory to complete a buy. So that is what we're recommending for the geography-based. As Michael said, with behavioral targeting, which is based on keywords, again, recommended minimum of 1,000 keywords. Frequency capping remains the same, 4 impressions per 24 hours per device. Now, again, that delivery could be influenced by other restrictions if we did additional blacklists, whitelists, or day parting to that. That behavioral targeting, once you layer that in, it does bring up our CPM, our minimum CPMs. So the price that you will see based on these impression levels is higher than on the geography, but not a lot. About $20 on the basement. As Michael said too, we can do demographic targeting as well by utilizing the addressable geofencing. Minimum. Go ahead. Oh, okay. The minimum recommended address list, we discovered this through some tests we did with our team and the marketing folks. And if we don't have at least 250 addresses from the client, we're not going to be able to really fulfill even a minimal buy of impressions. So we need at least 250 or above. If they provide us a list, there's no additional charge to do the addressable geofence. If we have to curate the list, as Michael said earlier, it requires a $5,000 minimum tactic spend. And if you look at the impression levels and price on this grid, it's the same as we were on geography. That's for the length of the campaign, so that's not per month. Okay. The other thing I just really wanted to point out, make sure everybody was aware, is that the address-specific geofencing can be used with banner, pre-roll, or OTT. And we have this nifty little spreadsheet that will calculate budget based on the amount of homes. So if you just kind of run down the list here, you see devices per home. We generally set that at 3. Impressions per day, there's that cap of 4 impressions per day per device. So that gives us 12 impressions. If we had a list of the minimum 250 households, the impressions per day then would be 3,000. And if we were doing this for banner at a $10 CPM, that gives us a spend per day of 30, and for 30 days would give you a campaign spend of $900. So that it gives you a way to estimate what the campaign spend should be based on the amount of addresses you have, and you would change basically your CPM to match whether you're doing banner, pre-roll, or OTT. Okay, it sounded like Michael said, if you didn't hear him, that he's got a new grid that takes into account some of the CTV and OTT, and we'll send that out to everybody as well.
This grid is specific to the display product.
Okay. Yeah, this grid's specific to the display product, if you didn't hear him. And that is all I've got. I'm sure you guys will have a lot of questions as we go through this. What we're going to do, I'll get everybody the deck so that you can have that available to talk to your clients. And we're going to set up probably a weekly call for you guys to just kind of call in and pepper us with questions and try and get you some answers, because this is going to take some time for us to kind of absorb and understand all the nuances of it. As Michael said, this is revolutionary. This is really the product that we wanted OTT to be. We started discussing this really a couple of years ago, and the prospect of being able to now recapture everybody and more is there. It's available, and it's very targetable and affordable. And I would urge everybody, especially you veterans that have been around a long time, look back at your client lists. Look back 5, 6, 7 years, and look to see what your clients were spending with you on spot back then, and the fact that they've since maybe are not spending as much with you now as a result of not having as many subscribers on the cable side of things. This is your opportunity to go back to them and say, we can get those people back and more, and we can target them by their behavior, by their demographics, by their geography, pretty much any way you can think of. Pretty exciting stuff, folks, and I think that once we get our arms around this and can really explain it well to our clients, they're going to be excited about it as well, and I think we're going to do some big things with this. So,
Brian?
Yes.
And one of the things that stuck in my head was the reach issue, right? And if you go back before when there were dinosaurs still on the earth and there was no such thing as digital, you told me that and maybe I'm wrong, but you told me that your reach at best back in the old days was like 30% reach in a market, and that the number one thing that the broadcast guys would do to undermine cable was to say, well, we've got 100% reach in the marketplace, or something close to that, right? When you combine your current product, your core product, okay, that you have currently today, and you add CTV and OTT onto it, because the reach for OTT and CTV is about 70%. You basically have a response that you've never had before to those guys who tried to undermine you. And you got to remember that they're out in the marketplace trying to get these folks as well. And really, it really is important that everybody get up to speed as quickly as possible and learn the ins and outs of this, which I know is not. It's going to take a little time, but the faster you can get there, the more likely you are to go and capture those broadcast guys' business. You're going to be eating their lunch basically, and they won't have a response because they don't have what you have. You actually have a better product by far than they do. So I think if you think about it in those ways, some of the guys on this call, or some of the people on this call, who have been selling cable for a long time, this is like the siren call. Like all of a sudden now you've got a product that kind of puts you back in the driver's seat. And you just need to learn how to package it and go out and talk to these people about it. And once you do that, it's going to be a super powerful tool to increase your revenue exponentially from where it was in 2018 and 2017. Okay, Brian, how did I do with that? Does that make sense?
That sounded great. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay.
Very good. All right, folks. I know you'll have a lot of questions. We'll be setting up some time for you to have those questions answered. And if you have a pressing need, please call me or email me or Michael, and we'll get this rolling for you. All right, everybody, thanks for your time, and we will be talking soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.